Sam, to close out the show before my interview with Daz from the Bangers and Mosh podcast hopefully comes in, depending on whether we actually get a chance to do that tomorrow, we are going to finish off on The Devil Wears Prada, their new EP, ZII, which obviously stands for Zombie 2. It's out on May 21st via Solid State Records, and it's the follow-up to 2010's wildly popular Zombie EP, but is chronologically the follow-up to 2019's The Act. Sam, I don't know whether you were on Twitter the night that this was announced, but I've rarely seen metalcore Twitter go into the kind of frenzy, the likes of which it did when this EP was announced. A lot of fans hold that first Zombie EP as like the greatest 20 minutes of The Devil Wears Prada's career. I actually don't personally agree. I think that Zombie is great, but I would take Danger Wild Man, Assistant to the Regional Manager, Des Moines, and Ben Has a Kid, which are all from With Roots Above and Branches Below. I'd take them as a collective over Zombie EP. Still, the EP is seen as wildly as a real heart favourite of the fan base. Sam, were you big on Zombie?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I remember hearing it in like 2011 and just absolutely kicking off.
Yeah,
it's tremendous. It's a landmark release for the genre at that time, no doubt.
Dude, you know me, I love to drop some stats in to remind people how big metalcore was in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I find it absolutely fascinating how big it was, and that...
Drop them numbers.
And that, man, honestly, if you think, like, the surge of new American heavy metal was big, it was nowhere near as big in terms of sales as the metalcore explosion, late 2000s, early 2010s. Here we go, Sam. With Roots Above, got 11th on the Billboard 200. Zombie got 10th. An EP got 10th. Dead Throne, which is the follow-up to Zombie, which has got my favourite Devil Wears Prada song on. Sam, do you remember Mammoth? Every time we were doing pre-drinks, she'd be like, "You're going to put Mammoth on, Chris?" I'm like, yeah. I love Mammoth. That came 10th. The follow-up to that, 818, came 20th. Transit Blues, which was the record that, if I remember correctly, Sam, you kind of gave a bit of a trouncing to in your review, and you were like the only person that did so. But Transit Blues came 56th, and their latest album, The Act, came 70th. I like to
think I contributed to that lower.
And their latest album, The Act, came 70th on the Billboard 200. Now, let me please make clear that this is not me knocking the Devil Wears Prada. This is not me saying that they are now a small band or that they're not very good. Devil Wears Prada are absolutely easily one of the best bands to burst out of that metalcore bubble of the late 2000s, early 2010s, and I think they are great. However, my point being that that boom period for what we refer to as modern metalcore was really incredible and just unlike most other things we have seen in alternative music. And as we can see from the numbers, it did not quickly die out because, 7 years after Dead Throne came out, they went from 10th to 70th in the Billboard 200. Multitude of factors, people buy less albums, all that kind of stuff. I just think the statistics are interesting. Sam, was it Transit Blues that you kind of gave a knock to?
It was, yeah. 2016, 2017 era.
Yeah, 2016 Transit Blues came out, you are correct. You ever seen Devil Wears Prada live, Sam?
No.
Right. I feel like the stats I was just reading off there actually translates quite well to the atmosphere I've seen when I've caught them live. I saw Devil Wears Prada in 2012. They were at Slam Dunk. And believe me when I say that was insane. They were the best act I saw that year. It was like literally unbelievable, one of the most insane, like dangerous crowds I've ever been in. Then I caught them in 2019 as a main support to Stray from the Path. They had Gideon and Loathe on that bill as well, and they weren't bad, and they weren't ignored during the set. But it all just kind of paled in comparison to when I saw them in 2012. So, with that, Sam, The Act was seen as an album that was somewhat divisive amongst the fan base because they were trying new things, more melodious, some experimentation. Coincidentally, the act actually gave them the song Chemical, which, if the press notes here are to be believed, is their first song to make real US radio. Interesting side note, considering that the act is the album of theirs that's done, in terms of sales, the worst in the last 11 years, but is the one that's given them the song that goes on to US radio. Go figure. Sam, let me ask you a question. If the act did seem to alienate some, is Zombie 2 a conscious decision to try and bring fans back in, or do you think this is something they plan to do regardless?
That's a good question. I think if you based on listening to it, it does sound like the former, doesn't it? Where it's an attempt to placate fans, or at least try and retouch on old popularities. Bands really tend not to do sequels of albums decades after. Most bands tend to, that's a point in time for us. We're going to move forward. Only bands like legacy bands that do like reissues and add stuff and studio outtakes and things like that are really sort of flitting through old recordings. Only those sort of bands are doing things like this. So it does feel The Devil Wears Prada are attempting to reconnect with an audience that they feel that they might have lost. And obviously the numbers and anecdotes about fan intensity appear to back that up. It does feel like an attempt at that. But just to touch on it, when you listen to it, it doesn't sound like Zombie though. It's not the same. It's not the same style. They haven't tried to refit that. It does. It's not with the same intensity, really, at all.
It's bloody good though, isn't it? I think this is great.
Yeah, I think this is good. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think this feels a bit like them, I guess, in the way that it's good in parts, in the way that it's a nostalgic trip at times for that band, and it's heavy and it's groovy and it's got some really, really terrific little moments and riffs. And I'm glad to hear that this metalcore version of them still exists. But if I took these 4 or 5 songs and said, all right, would you take these 4 against the best 4 from Counterparts or North Lane's last album, you'd probably say no. And that's the way that I feel about it. It's good. Is it better than anything that's come out in modern metalcore in the last sort of 2 years? No. Would you take the last Misery Signals over it? I would. Last Currents, pick 4 songs from there, I would too. So of Mice and Men, I'd even take the latest of Mice and Men EP. I think that was better than this. That being said, I do think it's very good. I just think that modern metalcore has moved on a little bit. I really, really do. This doesn't feel as special or as intense or as interesting or guttural as the first one did. I guess that's an unfair expectation, but then when you compare it to what metalcore is like in 2021, I don't feel like it matches up to those expectations either. So that's my feelings on it. I think it's very, very good, but following something that's very great in 2010 in Zombie, I do feel it's left a little to be desired, personally.
Well, I think this is great. I think this is, in terms of The Devil Wears Prada at their best, I don't think this is Devil Wears Prada at their best. I think With Roots Above and Branches Below is peak Devil Wears Prada. I think that album is one of the best metalcore albums ever made. It's absolutely brilliant, especially in modern metalcore. But I think it's not, me personally, I don't think it's that far off them being their best. I mean, mate, Nightfall, similar to Escape on Zombie 1, comes absolutely flying out the block. That kind of harsh tuning. My Chronica sounds as cutting as ever, and it's got this really like visceral tempo. Like, what I loved, was really clever about Zombie 1 is how it really lived within its concept. And like, there was the radio message at the start of, I forgot which song off the top of my head it becomes in, but the radio message saying like, the only way you can kill these by shooting them through the head, we're overrun, if you see one, you've got to act quickly, all that kind of stuff. And they've kind of reimagined that for this, not necessarily exactly in the same concept. This is they've kind of pitched this EP and written it around. They're no longer like in the concept of the outbreak has just happened. Now they're kind of surviving the aftermath of the outbreak just happening. But on Nightfall, there's lyrics like, "Is this the night of our demise? Can you make it till dawn?" They've the closing breakdown call is They Rise at Night. They've really brought back into the concept, and I thought that was one of the really cool things about the first Zombie EP. And as well, Nightfall is an absolute horrible, harsh, banging metal track, and I really, really like that. Forlorn's got this big harsh slam riff. Jeremy DePoyster, who's always been great at adding cleans into Devil Wears Prada, he is a brilliant ivory to Mike's ebony. And whatever you want to say about the act, I don't think the vocal harmonies that exist, specifically on Forlorn, but also on Contagion on this EP as well, would be there, or would work as well, or be produced as well, without them having the experience of writing with more accessibility in mind. There's a big North Lane style riff that runs through this track as well. I think the one track where I agree with you, Sam, is Termination. That for me, just weirdly, that's like one of the single release from the EP, I think. But that for me is just like, it's just inoffensive, decent metalcore, doesn't really ruin the experience, but it's just there. And I think the song that closes out the EP, Contagion, is great. Soft vocal lines that open. Might scare people hearing that, considering some people think Chemical is kind of sacrilege for what Devil Wears Prada do. But the vocal lines that open Contagion are really gentle and soft and great, and they reoccur throughout, which is really beautifully done. And it switches back into this kind of more classic Devil Wears Prada style, which works really well. There's a chug behind the vocal line, Observe the Sickness, before the pitch turns into the high scream, which is so harsh, and it's what Devil Wears Prada have always been brilliant at doing. I think this EP is really, really great, Sam. I'm surprised, actually. I thought you would be all over this. I thought specifically Nora is what would get you, because that's where Mike is really let loose. I thought that's a song that would have you really gritting teeth.
Actually, that was the one I wanted to talk about. Is the highlights.
Yeah, there it is. I thought so.
It is the highlights. It's the chorus riff as a breakdown style riff with them sort of screaming over the top of it. It's just terrific, isn't it? It's got groove, it's got brutality, it's got some real aggression and intensity, and I wish that was the 20-minute experience. And it shows me that obviously they're more than capable of still writing this brutal, impactful metalcore style, and the musicians should be still absolutely there. I don't, like I said, I really reiterate, I don't think this is bad at all. I think this is really, really good. I'm just saying that I think it's not as good as what modern metalcore is in 2021 right now, and I also don't think it's as good as its previous iteration with the same name. That's all. But I still think this is a very, very good EP. And I think there are lots of great moments on it. I agree with you. I think Nightfall and Nora, for me, are the two highlights of this. And I think the other two I can take or leave, and not because of the melody necessarily in Contagion. I'm fine with it. I just prefer the other two. I am interested to see, actually, if the band now move on from this, because it's a one-off.
This is interesting. I'm very curious. Very curious.
Where do they go now?
Yeah, man. So in 2022, 2023, when the next album comes out, very curious to see what that album sounds like. Sam, if you hated the act, do you think this is an EP that could win back faith?
A little, yeah. If I'm a huge Devil Wears Prada fan and I love the early stuff, then I'm absolutely buzzing that they're doing this sort of thing again, and I can, as a fan, will be able to talk myself into that this is the sign of things to come with them. I don't think it is, though, personally. I think the fact that they've named it Zombie 2, Z2, shows that we're okay doing this type of stuff under this banner as a reference to what we used to be, but we're not going to write an album of this. This feels very much like post-human survival horror from Bring Me the Horizon on a smaller, more micro way, where it's like, we'll do that for a bit. It's a nice thing to do over the summer. We spent a few months doing this bits and bobs. We've got these heavy riffs. Have that if you like. There you go. But when a real Devil Wears Prada writing session rolls back down, it's going to be a continuation of this feels like our main part of our band. This feels like a side quest. It's just this little separate plot line that's different or running alongside their main musical influences and ambitions. So I would be able to talk myself into it as a fan, but I can't see them touring Z2. Just can't see it. I could see them releasing another album and doing that tour, and then fans shouting for Zombie EP tracks or Z2 tracks from the set list, which I assume many Devil Wears Prada fans have been doing for a decade anyway. So can I see it changing the situation for Devil Wears Prada moving forward? No, unless it's just a smash hit and it just somehow gets top 20 and then they have to do something about it. Other than that, I can't, sadly.
I don't personally think it necessarily needs to change the game for Devil Wears Prada, because I think whatever you think of the act, which came out in 2019, whatever you think of it, fair play to Devil Wears Prada for taking the chance and doing something different. That's awesome. I love that. And I think that Devil Wears Prada can do whatever they want, because they're a great band and they're one of the best of that late 2000s, early 2010s bubble. And I think that I believe that if you weren't big on the act, I think you'll be really big on this. I'm really behind this. I think it's a really, really great EP. Would I take it over of Mice and Men's Timeless? That is interesting. Mice and Men's Timeless was only 3 songs. I think just about I would. And I really like Timeless. I really like Timeless by Of Mice and Men. So I think just about I would. Coincidentally, we're going to be reviewing Of Mice and Men's next EP on our upcoming episode. So that actually is where we should leave off before my interview with Daz comes in. Thank you very much for listening. If you are still with us, we appreciate that. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. We've got a massive, massive schedule for that one again. We're going to be doing Noctool, that is Serena Cherry's band. We're going to be doing Rise Against new record, and we're going to be doing, as I just mentioned, Of Mice and Men's new EP as well. So a big episode that. My interview with Daz from Bangers and Mosh Podcast should be coming up right now in the event that it did actually happen. Thank you for listening. Please give us a subscription or follow us, whichever service you are using. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Noizze Podcast. And we are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Don't go anywhere. My interview with Daz comes up right now. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We love you. Bye.